Well, welcome everybody. Hope everyone is doing well. Hope you guys enjoyed that Wake football win over UVA on Saturday. That was a big one for the Deacs. We've got another big one coming up against UNC at home on Saturday. So hope everyone can tune in for that. I'm Corey Pegram, so I'm a 2013 Wake grad, and now I help lead our Office of Family Engagement at Wake Forest. I saw a lot of familiar names registered for this webinar, so hello to everyone out there, and for those I don't know, I really hope to get the chance to meet you soon. We had over 400 parents register for this webinar, so we're glad that clearly all of you agree with us that the topic of life and career readiness is very important. So the team behind that work at Wake is the Office of Personal and Career Development, which you guys have probably heard them referred to as the OPCD on campus. And really, thanks in large part to a lot of generous parents over the years, we've been able to invest really meaningfully in that team. And the results have been pretty extraordinary. So, on average, over the past decade, over 96% of each of our graduating classes is employed or in grad school within 6 months of graduation. And notably, the college and the School of Business have practically equal outcomes every year. So what's behind those numbers are one, we are very fortunate to get some pretty incredible students to Wake. So thank all of you parents for sending your kids to school here. We're actually going to hear from a few of those awesome students today in just a little bit. And then number two, we're also very fortunate to have some incredible people at Wake doing amazing work to support your students. And two of those people are here with us today along with those couple incredible students that I mentioned. So, one of those folks who works on your students' behalf is Andy Chan. So, Andy is our vice president for the OPCD, and I'm going to turn it over to him in a second. Andy has been at Wake for 15 years now after running the Career Center at Stanford's Graduate School, which was after he led several educational technology startups in the market. He's been an innovator at Wake the entire time he's been here, and he leads our OPCD team. He's also joined by another amazing person who many of your students, even as freshmen, may already know. Heidi Robinson is our Associate VP of the OPCD, and she also teaches our college to career courses on campus, which are extremely popular and useful life skill classes that are available to your students. So they're both excited to be with you today to talk about how your freshmen can get involved early in the OPCD, which we'd obviously highly recommend, and also talk about the resources that their team offers so that your students can best position themselves for internships, jobs, and life after Wake. So I'm going to pass it over to Andy, and thanks so much, everyone, for being here.
Thanks, Corey, and thank you all for joining us today. We're really excited to be able to spend a little bit of time with you and welcome you to Wake Forest. Parents actually play a big role in the career development of their children. Oftentimes, sometimes not even aware what a big difference you can make. And so one of the reasons why we spend time with parents is we're trying to make sure that they understand the process and can be the best support they can be for their first year students right now and throughout the entire process. I'm going to take a few minutes up front and share a big picture perspective on jobs and careers right now in 2025 and what's ahead for our students. And then I'll ask Dr. Heidi Robinson, who Corey introduced, to join me in discussing the experiences of our students, how we support them. And then she will actually interview a few of our sophomore students to share their journey and how they utilize the OPCD and just made the most of their time in their short time here so far. If you happen to have any questions during our webinar, please add them to the Q&A link, which should be at the bottom of your screen. And our team will do the best we can to answer them in the Q&A discussion thread, or we'll try to answer them through our verbal responses. So we're going to cover a lot of ground, and feel free to ask questions through that mechanism. We'll also be putting a lot of resources into the chat, which will enable you to sort of open those up if you want and save them for later. We're also recording the whole session so that if you want to listen to it later, pass it on to your partner, or to be able to share it with your students, you can do that too. So I'm going to start out just talking about the overall college to career process and three basic points. One is just thinking about just the big picture. and thinking a little bit about what's happening here in 2025. The second is this whole idea of the phrase we use, career and life readiness, and why that is so essential for all students in college. And we do that in a really intentional way here at Wake Forest. And then the third is why our Wake Forest students consistently succeed in the process. And we'll share a little bit about some of the history and what employers and grad schools say about our students. So, first, the big picture. One of the things that I think can be very difficult to hear is that the job search is just really always very difficult. I know that right now there's a lot of news and data out there and a lot of stories about how hard it is for students to find jobs. And the reality is that it's been hard actually every time. The way we think about it is anytime a student doesn't have a job, it's really hard to get a job, and that is just there's no getting around that. I think it's an emotional process, but also it's one where oftentimes students aren't even sure exactly if they're doing the right thing, and so it's really actually harder than ever for college students. And it's not just because of the market. As we know, the market right now is uncertain and dynamic. It's really being driven by the economy, just by the uncertainty, and also by sort of what's happening in general with respect to what employers are expecting students to know in order to be able to perform well in the workplace. And then also finally, whatever that is happening with AI, which is very different across a lot of different industries and companies, but it's creating a lot of confusion. The other thing about recruiting is that it's pretty opaque. Like there's just a lot of information and ways that companies recruit across different sectors that are very different. And so because of these really differing timelines, it can be very confusing for students and being unsure as to what to do. And so we'll try to unpack that a little bit, but also let you know that by talking to us in our office and accessing the resources we have online will help them be able to know when to do what they should be doing. The last thing is that the internet has actually made it both harder and easier. With the abundance of information and the numerous number of jobs and opportunities, it's actually made it feel like it's so much easier to get a job. But at the same time, because of all that volume, it's actually really paralyzed a lot of people and made it feel like there's opportunities when in fact it's really quite hard, as I said already. So there's a lot of reasons why it's very confusing, and we're really here to try to help demystify some of that process. And really, every individual student has their own journey, and so us getting to know them is really important. One way that I try to help students think about it, and one way that you might also think about it, is helping your students understand one is that it's all on them. Like it's up to them in terms of them owning the process. And your student, I like to say, is trying to move from being a high school student to a college student to actually becoming the CEO of their own life and their own career. And that's a big step. And so that can be a hard thing to actually embrace, but finding ways to get your student to get comfortable with the idea that they can do it and they can own it, and that actually thousands upon thousands of Wake Forest students before have done it before, that they can do it. They're in the right environment to make it happen. Second is that if they can create a regular and consistent way to actually think about it and work on it, that also is really helpful. And we have some tools and ways for you to think about that. And I'll share that in a second. The third is to just never give up. I think one of the things that we find that students do, not only just at Wake, but in the world, is that when things feel hard, they just want to sort of wait. They want to maybe wait till it gets easier. And the reality is, I'm not sure it really does ever get easier. And so it's important to just sort of stay with it and just be really consistent with it. So the two big ways at Wake is one is build a relationship with a career coach. And we'll talk a little bit about how that's possible. And the second is we have these college career courses. We're one of these few schools in the country that have half semester college career courses that you can take that enable you to be able to learn how to basically become career and life ready in a very academic way. Dr. Robinson, who you'll meet in a second, actually designed these courses, teaches these courses, trains all the faculty who teach in these courses. And we see the students who take these courses are demonstrably more ready for the workplace and for the job search because they take these courses. So again, the first most important thing is having the student feel like I own this and no one's going to take this care of this for me. I've got to do it myself. So this whole thing that I'm describing is becoming career and life ready. And one of the reasons why we think about it that way is that there's a lot of predictions that college grads today will have over 20 jobs over the course of their lives, and many of them in their first 10 years after college. And so it's more important not just to get a first job, but to know how to get a job, because you're going to be getting new jobs over time, over your career. And I know for some of you that might feel like, what a shock. That's crazy. But at the same time, we actually have another phrase we like to say, ABC, which is First job is a job, second job is a better job, and the third job is your career job. And that you don't have to make that first job coming out of college be like the be all end all perfect job. It's rare that actually your first job is really that. And so helping students think about things in a longer term way, developing the skills, the competencies, and the confidence to manage this process is actually what's most important. We're really trying to teach students how to fish more than just catch fish for them and make it easy for them to get jobs. We want to make it easier for sure, but it's like I said, it's never really that easy. Um, so the way we think about career and life readiness is that basically having the competencies, and competencies are your knowledge and your abilities to independently get a job when I want or need to, and to be able to manage my life successfully. And I think most of us would want that for our children. And we actually have a whole set of competencies called the Ready Seven that we talk to our students about and try to get them up to speed on realizing this is a process of a sort of skill acquisition, not something that can happen really quickly. So that is one thing you can help us with helping your student is helping them understand that this is a process. It's not supposed to happen through one meeting with a career coach. Sometimes the students might come into our office and think, I went to the meeting one time in 30 minutes, I didn't get everything done. Like everything done is a lot of different things from your resume to your profile, LinkedIn or Handshake, being able to know how to network, being knowing to know how to interview, knowing actually technical skills to do a special kind of interview. Like it takes more than one visit to the OPCD, helping students understand like this is something that if you do a little bit over time, it'll get easier and easier as opposed to one and done. And that goes a little bit against what students might like, but this is really the reality. And we can help them set goals, create an action plan, and revisit it, whether it's every month or a couple times a semester, beginning or end of every semester. Like our coaches are there to help them with this. And so we're going to talk more with Heidi about a lot of these resources to help them succeed. And we'd love to help them by having them try to get to our office. And we have a lot of different ways. Again, we can talk to you about how to make that happen. Um, the third point I wanted to talk about is just that our students are consistently successful. One of the things that I have found by working here at Wake Forest is just how rewarding it is to see how well our students perform in the workplace. The feedback we get from recruiters and from grad schools oftentimes is things like your students are outstanding, they hit it out of the park, they're so poised, they're professional and prepared for networking and for interviewing, they ask great questions. They have great interpersonal and critical thinking skills, and they're not entitled. They have strong work ethic when they're on the job. When a lot of other students are complaining, like your students don't complain, they really are not afraid of hard work, and they're really, really good team players. So all of these things are a part of what Corey said. You actually help them get to this place to be able to come to an environment like Wake Forest where they're honing their skills and their character and their personality in a way such that this is what our employers say about them. And so honestly, the one thing that most recruiters say about our students is, I just wish you had more of them. And so it's a great place to be where we can both prepare students, but also we hear this kind of great feedback. Where it really works for us too is when we really measure here in our office is our students engaged in this process. And we're actually able to measure student engagement. So over a year's time, we can actually see that pretty much almost of every class, close to 80% of the class is doing some career-related activity, moving the ball forward. And so we're really grateful to see that type of engagement. We have to work hard to be able to make that happen, but our students are quite engaged in the process. We have a culture where that's really possible. And then as Corey said, like in terms of outcomes, our worst year was the COVID year where it was 94.5%, but most years are 97 or higher. And so we actually are able to get, most of our students into great grad schools and good jobs within 6 months of graduation. The reason why I think this really happens, one is that our culture of pro humanitate really has students who are looking to be of service to others, but also they actually are interested in their own personal development, and we really try to help them with that. The second is obviously the residential liberal arts, where the teacher scholar and the small class sizes enable students to really be engaged in class and have to be prepared and have to speak up. They can't just be in a class where they're doing it all online or they just don't have to show up. Like they have to really be present, and that really helps get them be prepared for being in the workplace. So, when students might complain about how hard the work is, it's actually paying off when they actually get into the workplace. And then finally, all of those experiences they have to be leaders. Our biggest challenge oftentimes with students is finding ways to have them get comfortable cutting things out of their resume. So we actually want to make sure they have the right things on the resume that focus on the job. But this whole environment we have here enables students to really be engaged. And it's not about having a volume of things. It's really finding a few things that they really are passionate about, and that they are developing skills to become leaders in their own way, whatever shape and form that takes. Um, so the last thing I like to talk about is that we called our office the Office of Personal and Career Development. And one of the big reasons why is that we really care about your students as people, their values, their personalities, their unique journeys. And we really want to help them know that that's important as they think about what they might go do. So as that unfolds, and as you'll hear a little bit about in our courses, we really care about your students as people, and we care about every single one of them. And so we really help them know that you've got a community of people here who are really looking out for the best interests and want to help them be successful. But it is really important that, they as people are what's most important. So those were the big three things I want to talk to you about. I know I went through them pretty quickly, but hopefully you got the gist of it, that the market, although it's hard and the job search is always hard, we can help them through it. Second is that it's really important to be career and life ready and to be thinking about it for the long haul, not just to get a job. And then third is there's a real advantage for coming to Wake Forest, and that our students are consistently successful, and your student will be, even when in the meantime it may feel like they're lost or they're not sure or maybe they're not that engaged, like they will get there, and we will help them along the way. So with that, I'm going to introduce now, or bring really Heidi Robinson to the group to talk a little bit about her experiences with our students, and all the great resources that we have. So Heidi, welcome. Maybe you can say hi to all the parents out there.
Hello to all of the parents. I feel so fortunate that we get to be here with you and to talk with you. So many of you were a part of moving your child onto campus, and we got to say hello down in those residence halls. And so just delighted to be back with you again. We're grateful that we get to support your students.
Heidi, you've been here for a bit of time. Why don't you give us a little bit of background? Like, how long have you been now here at Wake, and all the different hats that you wear, so people know like what you do, but also how many, I guess, how much you work with students too.
Oh my goodness. It is almost 15 years for me. And they've gone very quickly because it's really a special place to be, and really special to be working with students who are so motivated, talented, and really have all these gifts that they want to share with the world and in the workplace. I not only I started here as a faculty member, and Andy hired me to go ahead and begin our College to Career course series, which has been a tremendous joy to see students come in and inevitably across the board feel a little bit nervous about the process, which is appropriate. And then to go through the courses and really not only find confidence, but also have a sense of the things that matter to them and the things that they want to pursue. I work with students in the classroom. I work with students in our office. I also have the great joy of working with our college education team, which serves all of the students in the college. So supporting students from the moment they get here on campus, all the way through that time when we get to cheer for them out on Hearn Plaza and watch them walk across the stage. Oh, such a joy. Great stuff.
Well, Heidi, tell me, and tell the parents, how did the first years get introduced to the OPCD? What should their experiences be like now? I know for some it may feel a little bit like, oh, my students late already. Like, what's going on here? Can you give a little context for like where we are in this process and what we're trying to do with first year students when they first come to Wake Forest?
Absolutely. Whether your students, they had a lot of information, parents, you did too, as you started getting ready for your Wake Forest journey. And what I would say is your students actually got to know us during the summer. They did an entire module sort of thinking through the kinds of interests that they have, the experiences and skills that they're bringing to Wake, really starting from a strengths perspective. And then once that happens, what we are able to do is to go ahead and be part of, I guess, what I would call the welcoming crew. Parents, if you saw someone walking through the residence hall that your child was moving into, and there was a big dog coming in, a therapy dog coming in and saying hello, that was the OPCD group coming through. And so many of you followed us on Instagram, which was great, WFU OPCD. We would love to have you as part of our community. We got to go ahead and be a part of that. Some parents, you may have seen us as we were chatting and handing out posters to your students. And then the great thing is our team has been in every residence hall on South Campus. Every single hall that has first year students has had a coach sitting and saying hello, offering advice. We have been with RAs, we've been doing presentations down with first years. It's actually been a very intense time wanting to be sure that we get to each student. So, those are all of the different ways that we've had a chance to get to know this class. And we've been amazed and delighted by them. They have been incredibly enthusiastic, perhaps as responsive as any class we've seen in terms of getting started, coming in and getting resumes reviewed, starting their first year resumes with us, and attending different events like the career fair.
Yeah, so it sounds like there are definitely a bunch of first years who are, all of them are somewhat like starting. Some
Yes,
are more engaged than others. Um, in terms of if you were to just give a little bit of guidance, what are the kinds of students who might be and should be maybe more engaged because it's important to get going versus those who they have more time, they
sure.
can get started a little bit later, maybe next semester or even sophomore year. Like talk a little bit about the different types of students given their interests or where they are in the process.
Sure. I think I'll start with the group of students who may be the largest group. And while they may not like this as a label, I would call them explorers, and they're coming in with diffuse interests, excitement about a lot of different things, and really trying to figure out what it is they want to study, the kinds of things that call to them or interest them, and the things that don't. So that is perhaps the largest group, and we're trying to feed them information. They are receiving emails from our office. We have a coach whose specialty is first years and sophomores. So your student is getting all sorts of information to help them sort of run through what calls to them and raises their energy. We have a lot of students, and historically it's been about 30%, who come into Wake Forest as first years and say that they would like to be a physician. They might be pre-med. Now, not all of them will stay pre-med. Only about 4 to 6% each year actually go to medical school. But we know that a lot of those students have a math science orientation. So maybe interested in either something in a health professions or engineering. There are lots of students who start in one area and move to the other. We have students who come in and say they are pre-law. And those students really are interested in hoping that there's a checklist that they absolutely must do. Really, what they need to do is get good grades and to study interesting things that are important to them. That's the way they'll get those good grades. And finally, we have a swath of students who come in very directed from the jump, and they may be looking at things in finance. And those are the students that we really want to be sure we get connected with as soon as we can. And they are students who indicate that they are interested in finance or in the business school. They are getting emails, and we have even had some very tailored training for those students. And that's because the deadlines for finance recruiting has moved up so much that we want to be sure our students who are first years understand how to be ready. So we have actually put together a curriculum we've had this fall called the Finance Accelerator. And students have been able to attend two different sessions, one which was sort of the basics one Saturday, and then a second called Training the Street. And they have had a chance to really get started with those kinds of things. For those who may not have had that experience yet, there'll be another chance in the spring for some other opportunities that will get those students ready for what's to come and those fast deadlines.
Great. You've got me thinking about a few questions that follow on to this. So one of them is we use this phrase, "You're not married to your major," and I was wondering if you could unpack that a little bit and why we emphasize that so much because it is a little bit funny because a lot of students seem to perceive like figure out my major is the first most important thing and obviously we talk about our dreaded questions. Can you talk a little about some of these concepts that we talk to students about?
Absolutely. I would say one of the great gifts that parents have, but students also have at Wake, is that we are very transparent with our data. So when students start to talk about their major, they often go ahead and think that major equals professional path. And we publish our outcomes are on our website because we want parents and students to become familiar with this idea that major is really a flexible tool in a student's hand. It does not determine what they will do for the rest of their lives. So we want students to be able to get that concept by actually looking at the outcomes of our young alumni. So those are published on our website under Explore Majors. And parents, students can go ahead and take a look and see, where do politics and international affairs alumni go. You might be surprised to know that there have been some years when major consulting firms have come and the students that they chose were all politics and international affairs, which sort of goes against what students may think, which is that if you're a politics major, you might be going to the Hill. They might, but they also might go into consulting, or as one of our politics students is doing right now, headed for Wells Fargo in Chicago. So we really like students to understand this concept that it's the experiences and the skills that they are developing that really lead the way. So I would say not married to your major. I always tell students, I'm not even sure you're engaged. You're definitely in a relationship with your major, but it's not the thing that's going to define your path. The other piece that I think about is, especially with Thanksgiving coming up, are what I often talk with students about as the dreaded questions. And inevitably, a student is going to be asked one or two of those questions sitting around a Thanksgiving table, or perhaps afterward while watching football. So the dreaded questions for students, and I don't even have to say what those questions are to students. They know what they are. If I say, "What's the question you hate?" They'll say, "Oh, one is, what are you going to do when you leave Wake Forest?" And if you think about it, in our culture, we start asking students that as soon as they graduate from high school. The other is, what are you going to major in? And because at Wake, we don't declare our majors until sophomore year, students feel that pressure to pick the right major for 3 whole semesters. And some students think the only way that they can have a career in business is to go to the business school. And of course, that's one route. However, what we often try to let students see in the outcomes from our young alumni is that really there are multiple ways and paths to go ahead and do, whether it's business or a host of different things, consulting, all of the different areas within the business world. There are lots of different ways to get there, and our job is to help students get there. So I've been trying to help students in our classes get ready for the no longer dreaded. That's what we have said. No, these are not dreaded questions anymore. They're strategic, and how to have an answer that they can feel confident about and they can take to the Thanksgiving dinner that may also open some doors to conversations that can be really meaningful for students.
That's great. That's great. This is a big point as you think about. I think a lot of times we're always trying to get people pinned down to say, "Oh, this is what you're going to do. Now I know what you're going to do. Check."
Right.
When in
That's right.
fact, like the students are really in a process of learning. They're just learning about how the world works. They're learning what's out there, and they don't know the answer. And so it's okay not to have the answer yet. Like I think that's one of the things we want everyone to rush to, deciding soon and just get on the path and, sort of go down the narrow path. But if there's anything we know right now, the world's changing so much that you actually have to be
Absolutely.
really on your toes to sort of figure out what's going to be out there in the future, and how do I discern what's right for me?
I think one of the best outcomes that could happen for families as they are considering asking the dreaded question at Thanksgiving is actually to flip that and to go ahead and think to yourself, have I told my first year what I was thinking about when I was a first year? The kinds of paths I was considering, the myths that actually plagued me as I considered which professional path would be mine. And even I find that students and young adults don't often know the career stories, the long winding roads that most careers take. And so that can be really helpful for students to hear that as well.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that example too. So one you mentioned this whole idea that we do send emails directed and targeted to students. We have a certain way in which we do that. Can you describe how we do that and how it's important to have, an updated profile in the system because otherwise you may not be getting some of these messages that could be really relevant to you.
Absolutely. So I would say the first thing is our Handshake platform. If you hear students talking about their handshake, it may not necessarily be their official professional greeting. It's this recruiting platform that Wake Forest uses to communicate with students about opportunities and events and for students to get information about recruiters who may be coming to campus, events like the Finance Accelerator, different opportunities. We like, for example, our resume clinic called Wake Your Resume. Students are receiving those because they have filled out their Handshake profile. And it's not hard for students to do. They log in, they agree to be great citizens of Wake Forest on Handshake, and then they need to fill out the sorts of career interests that they already have, knowing that they could change those tomorrow. But the Handshake platform is able to send targeted communication to students using those career interests that they identify. Those might be not only career interests in terms of industry or role, but they might even be geographic. I worked with a student today who realized on her Handshake platform that she'd only listed one city, when in fact she was open to opportunities in about 6 different places. Well, updating her Handshake profile really shifted the kinds of opportunities that were shifted to her communication right away. We started seeing that those opportunities started coming into her feed on Handshake that really reflected what she's most interested in now and where she's interested in being. So I would say that is one place. The other thing that I would encourage both parents and particularly first years to do is to be following us on Instagram. There are a host of different communications we are sending out. Some of them are very funny, frankly, and others are things that are coming up, whether it's a career fair, a graduate school fair, or things that have popped up that have a short deadline that may be internship related. So making sure that Handshake profile is up to date, following on Insta, those are things that students can do that are really helpful to them, especially as they are exploring or trying to gain skills and experiences that help them figure this whole thing out.
Great, Heidi. So I'm going to ask one question before I let you interview our students. So the last question is what I talked about early on, which was one would be sort of how to engage with our office, to first get started. I don't think you have to start going to a coach right away, but maybe you can talk to that as a first year student. And then on the other side, can you talk a little bit about the career courses?
Absolutely. And I would be remiss, Andy, if I didn't say that I would like every first year student to come in and use our photo booth to get their professional photo taken for their LinkedIn or for their Handshake profiles. The other way to get started, other than dropping in for the photo booth, is for students to go ahead and drop in for a 15-minute appointment. We have coaches who are available Monday through Friday from 1:30 to 4:30. We say, no appointment, no problem. Come on in and at least see what the office is like, get to know where it is, and just see that it's actually kind of a fun place to be. So that would be one piece, just going ahead and getting started very flexibly. And perhaps even going through our website to see all the resources that are there. There's more there than students often know. The other thing that I would say, and a great way to get started in this process, is a very structured way that you've referenced, Andy, that we call our college to career courses. And those courses are housed in the Department of Education. We call them college to career courses. Our students often call them the EDU courses because that's the prefix for the Department of Education. Each of these courses is 1.5 credits, half semester, as you mentioned, And in our ideal world, Andy, I know we would have every student take the first two courses over those first 3 semesters, but before the end of their sophomore year. It's a structured way for students to explore their interests, to go ahead and begin building skills and tools, and to get credit for doing things like going to a resume workshop, building their LinkedIn profile, learning how to build their professional network. And it's structured, and what we've done with these courses is we've elevated them into the space where it's part of an academic load, which means that students are naturally carving out time each week to be in a class that helps them go ahead and gain some progress and get some momentum.
Great. Thank you, Heidi, for all that. There's a lot more that I'm sure you'll be talking about with our students, share some of the resources and the way that they thought about their first year, how they thought about experiences and internships. And I'll let you take it from here, and I'll be back to wrap it up at the end.
Thank you, Andy. Oh, this is probably my favorite part of all of our webinars. We have amazing Wake Forest students who will be joining us right now. Ryan, Max, and Rory. And one of the great things about having these particular students with us is that they are sophomores. And that means that they remember very clearly what it was like to be a first year and what it was like to be a first year who was looking for summer experience. And so, Rory, Max, Ryan, I'll ask you to go ahead and turn on those cameras. Thank you. Hey, Ryan. Hey, Max. Hey, Rory. So grateful that you all have joined us. This is a busy time in the semester. And I appreciate and do not take it for granted that you are making time to be with us. So, what I think I'd like to do first is let folks know who you are and where you're from. So, if you would introduce yourself and go ahead and tell us where you call home.
Hi everyone, my name is Ryan Weisberg and I'm from Miami, Florida.
Hi everyone, I'm Rory O'Connor and I'm from Boca Raton, Florida.
Hi everyone, I'm Max. I'm from Westchester, New York.
Thank you. And Max, you're probably out of all three of you best prepared for this cold weather we're experiencing. Rory, Ryan, sorry, this is not particularly South Florida weather here in Winston-Salem right now. I would love to get started asking you all, now that you've introduced yourselves, I'd like to start with what it feels like to be a first year, considering how to get summer experience. When you started thinking about it, if you were thinking about it, and the sorts of things that are thoughts related to this process of getting career and life ready as first years. Let's see, Max, do you want to kick? Oh, Ryan, perfect. I saw you unmute.
Yeah, I can start off. So for summer of freshman year, I didn't really know exactly what to do, and that's one of the main reasons I went to the office, just to get like insight on what I should be doing. And the first thing that I heard of from other people at the school, and I brought it up with Dr. Robinson, was the London School of Economics. And I think that was a great program to go on. It's really big with the Wake students here. And I think that was just a really nice way of kind of figuring out what to do with my summer for the first half. It was only 3 weeks, but it was a nice chunk of my summer to take courses in London and kind of learn from a new culture. So that was nice. And then I also, when I came back, I didn't really know exactly what to do with the rest of my time. Obviously, a lot of places where there are internships, they're not really looking for freshmen. And so I didn't really know what to do. I was talking to my parents about it, and they were like, just go find like an ice cream shop or something to work at. So I went to a sandwich shop. I tried to get a job there. They wouldn't let me work there because it was just for like a month. And I tried another coffee shop. That didn't work either. So I kind of have given up. But instead of giving up, my sister had told me, why don't you try to flip this into something else? So I ran back into the person that worked at the coffee shop. And I was like, I know you are an entrepreneur, and the coffee shop was just like one of their businesses. And so I was wondering if I could maybe shadow you guys for the month and like call it an internship. And so they did. And it was a quote unquote finance internship where I did a lot of their financing. and they were turning themselves into a roastery. So not just a coffee shop, but they were trying to do a startup roastery as well. So I was doing the startup costs and the financing. I learned a lot about like Excel and market research. So it was a nice way of changing my summer from working at a coffee shop to actually learning a little bit more about business, which I am now interested in. So that was really nice as well.
And Ryan, that makes me think of these books that sometimes middle schoolers read called Choose Your Own Adventure. You built your own adventure,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
was actually just a really entrepreneurial thing for you to be doing, as well as finding an opportunity with an entrepreneurial venture that because startups always need help. So
Yeah.
going ahead and finding those different pieces was very, very strategic for you to do.
Hmm.
I'm going
Yeah.
to transition. Oh, go
I
ahead.
think I think the main thing that I learned from that was just like people are trying to help you out. Like, and if you the reason he gave me the internship, he ended up telling me afterwards was that he liked that I had that courage and wanting to ask for more. Like he was like, yeah, like an intern, we don't really need that, but he was like, since I came back and asked again, and he liked that like demonstrated interest that he was willing to help me, and so I really appreciated that.
I love that. And that's why he gave you more to do than work behind a coffee counter. He had you
Right.
in the finance and operations piece. I love that.
Yeah.
Ryan, thank you. And I'm going to transition over. Max, what is the mindset of first years who start to think about this idea that summer's coming? And what are the thoughts and feelings that first years have when they consider summer experiences after that first year?
Yeah, so it's a very daunting feeling being a freshman. You kind of just start getting acclimated to Wake Forest and meeting all these new people and getting started with all these new classes. And to be honest, your summer plans are kind of not the first thing in your mind, but eventually, I know I had my parents really on me about it throughout the year, and I want to say like at the beginning of second semester is when I really started to think about what I want to do over the summer and really started searching around for opportunities to gain as much experience as I could going into sophomore year, knowing that I was looking to apply to the business school.
So, Max, you mentioned your parents and having conversations with them. And of course, we have parents here on this webinar who probably their ears went, wait, I'd like to hear a little bit more about those conversations. Um, will you share a little bit about how you and your parents really worked together and sort of the key to finding some summer experience for you last summer?
Yeah, 100%. Um, so when I say my parents were on me, that's not entirely true. When I say that, I mean I worked with my parents to like communicate with them as much as I could. So at first, I'm not gonna lie, I was very annoyed with my dad because he was like always on top of me, and I couldn't take it. And we kind of developed a way where like they had my schedule, and I was just communicating with them like how much work I had a certain week, and if like when I was available, especially being freshman year and with all those other pressures. So we worked out a way that I was able to talk with them, and they could kind of push me to seek out opportunity like when I was available. And they also helped me a lot, like talk, connecting me with a bunch of family friends that they know. And there's a lot of like Ryan said, people want to do favors for each other, and reaching out to a bunch of family friends was honestly the key for me. It's just reaching out to as many people as possible, and those people are always looking to help and give experience and their view on stuff.
I love two things that you said in particular. One, you and your family went ahead and set up a system, right? You kind of had an agreement about when those conversations were going to happen, which is really helpful. Then it's almost part of the schedule. You know when it's going to happen, and you can both be ready around that very ambitious Wake Forest schedule. The other thing that you just said that I think is helpful for parents to hear is the idea of family opening doors, particularly for that first year summer experience. Will you say a little bit about what you did and how you landed your experience?
Yeah. So this summer, I was fortunate enough to have an internship at SoFi in New York City. And that all started with me talking to my dad, and he it introduced me to some family friends that I'd met once, but I reconnected with them. I reached out to them over email, and I think he responded to me probably within a week. There were a lot of people that he connected me with, but there's this guy that used to work at SoFi, and he knew someone. And once I was on a call with him, and I asked him to connect me with another person that could help me and teach me more. And you kind of just build these conversations and build these new relationships with them. And eventually they offered me a spot to work on their team in the city. And that's how I got that.
Which is pretty for a first year, that's pretty unusual. So having people who were looking out for you, who were allies, who knew you, that is a pretty tremendous, uh, a tremendous way to have those doors swing a little bit more easily, which we all know that fundamentally that's a wonderful strategy. And I love that that's what actually got you that summer experience after your first year. Rory, don't you worry, I'm coming down to you. You are in the corner of my screen and look at that smile. Your story makes me smile. So I'd love to talk with you about sort of what you were thinking in the spring of your first year, and then we'll talk about some of the conversations we know you had.
Yeah, so my spring semester, my freshman year, I definitely wasn't looking for a summer internship, but I had some family friends out in LA that had talked about an opportunity that was in the marketing area, which once I was back out there a couple months ago, prior to that, and I told them and expressed interest in marketing and specifically the sports industry. And so when they heard that, they reached back out to me and told me about this potential internship. And yeah.
And at that point, you were having these conversations, but really had an interest area that people were trying to help you meet. Will you say a
Yes.
little bit about where you wound up interning with this open door that was created?
Yes. So I interned for the Los Angeles Rams, specifically their training camp under the marketing operations division. So yeah.
And because you were having those open conversations with your family, that really was a helpful way for you to explore this interest. And it turns out you've built on this momentum this year.
Yes. So just like putting myself out there, networking, I mean, that opportunity I would have never known about it, let alone be presented to me if I hadn't expressed interest and put myself out there with family friends. And yeah, that's led to success this semester too, with potential opportunities as well.
Everyone, I want you to send Rory good wishes. She's got a big interview tomorrow, in fact. So we're all sending our good thoughts. We believe in you.
Thank you.
I'm going to go back and ask you all for a piece of advice, one for first year students, one that you would give your younger self, and maybe one for parents, something, a way that they can be helpful or helping their first year students as the spring semester is about to start. Ryan, I may ask you to go ahead and kick us off.
Yeah. I'd say the main thing that I learned about myself during the first semester was I definitely didn't check my email enough. And there are so many emails coming in with so many different opportunities. So I say my main piece of advice to freshmen right now are just check your email as much as possible because there's so many different opportunities on campus that like can go by you if you spend a couple of days and you haven't checked your email or anything. And they all are very, very helpful for whatever you're trying to do. So I'm glad that I've started to read my email more because I started to realize there's so much going on that I was missing in my first semester.
Perfect. Thank you. I think that's good advice. Checking that and checking Handshake, I think will go a long way. Max, what would you say to parents? What advice would you have?
Like I was talking about, just building a system with your kid is honestly the biggest thing. it can go from having your relationship with them being like an extra class or chore that it feels like to making them actually want to seek out a job or a internship that would lead to real experience.
Nice. So, being an inspiration and an ally and figuring out how to have those conversations so that you feel that partnership and cooperation. Thank you, Max. Rory, I'll let you choose. Do you want to give advice to parents or advice to first years?
I guess first years. I know that I didn't meet with the OPCD until this semester of my sophomore year, and I regret that because freshman year, you're so busy. And to me, the OPCD sounded a bit daunting, especially since I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. But really, like what was previously stated, it's very low stakes and it's truly just an opportunity to explore your interest. And it really helps you, it doesn't hurt you at all. So I regret not going earlier.
You all are so impressive. It is almost unbelievable that you are only sophomores. You all have so much to be proud of in what you've done here at Wake. And I know we feel proud of you because we get to be part of watching and witnessing what you're doing. Rory, Ryan, Max, thank you all for being on our panel, sharing your perspective and your wisdom. So I know you've got things to get back to and study right now. We're grateful that you are here. And Max, I'll see you in class tomorrow.
Thank you. We wouldn't be able to do without you, so thank you guys.
Oh, Ryan, you would,
Thank you
but it's
so
fun for me
much.
to watch. Thank you all. Impressive, Andy. Just
Exciting.
impressive and inspiring.
Yeah, I mean, just that whole notion of just not giving up and just being creative and just again back to interpersonal skills, not being afraid to go out and talk to people about what their interests and being open. I mean, that's the thing when you're in your first year, just learning both how to do it, but learning that what's out there in the world is great. And I think that it's interesting. One of the questions that came up in the Q&A was a little bit about like, are there jobs out there where that you'll be like insulated from AI? And I found myself thinking, Patrick gave a good answer, but I was curious what you might say to this idea, only because I'm not sure anything's totally insulated, actually. But it doesn't mean we should be scared, but it also means I think we're trying to help our students how to think about that. How would you think about that?
I am in class and in meetings with students, wanting them to see AI as a tool and as almost an ally for them. I love that word ally. And so, with AI in particular, we want students to understand how to use that very well. And I don't know if I want them. I was thinking, do we want them to be insulated from AI? Because I think it can be a real, obviously it's a watershed kind of a moment with AI. And so for us, helping students understand how to optimize it both in their search, but also in the work that they're going to do and to wander
Mm,
wisely.
yeah, that's good. Yeah, one of the things I'm excited about is that we have many faculty who are, I mean, we have some faculty who are still reluctant to like think about how to use it, and we have others who are really trying to teach students how to use it, and more than anything, be ethical about its use and be responsible and really help our students even think more deeply. So I think we're going to be okay as we go forward, especially if our students really excel in these interpersonal skills that we've been talking about. So
I just looked, in fact, Andy, to your point, at the top skills that employers said this year that they want students to have. And the top five are problem solving, they want critical thinking, they want written and verbal communication, and teamwork. And in the age of AI and looking at all of those skills, it makes me even more confident in the student that is at Wake Forest, the ecosystem in which they find themselves. If we can get a Wake Forest student in front of an employer and a recruiter, they win because they are bringing all of that talent, all of those experiences and skills into that moment.
yeah, I totally agree. One of the things that I wanted to mention is that we put together, we're going to be actually sending this out. It's already on our website, but we're going to be sending a note out to everyone to let them know that we have Wake on Break and we have a lot of tips and resources in there. If Patrick's able to upload that into the chat. People can have a look at that. But they just give a few ideas for you as parents on things you can talk to your child about, but also very importantly, not to be putting a lot of pressure on them. I do think that that's one of the things I heard the students talking about is like finding that balance of, maybe a little bit of pressure, but not overdoing it. What's your general advice around that? How should you think about that for a first year student and, your child coming back from break?
I think that Thanksgiving break for first years is a moment where they actually get to take that first deep breath.
Yeah, rest.
And yes, I think it's a great time for parents to be asking what's interesting, which classes are interesting, which things they are studying that have changed the way they think. I think that's an important way to keep those lines of communication open. So to Ryan's point, when it is time to ask how we can help you or what are you doing about summer experience, it's a little bit more of an open and easy dialogue. I would say that winter break is long. And so that is a great time for students to be having curiosity conversations about with family friends, with neighbors, with some of the people who are at their high school graduation. Have asking to hear their career story. I think students, the average high school student only knows 10 careers. Wow, there are so many more out there, and to hear those stories is really reassuring and sometimes very inspiring.
Yeah, I agree. I think Thanksgiving is a good time to just rest and get energized to handle the last few weeks of school. It's very busy from an academic standpoint, and you want to see some of your friends before you head off. So you want to do the best you can to make your first finals experience really good. So I'd maybe stay more focused on that and allow your student to be just like we talk about, allow them to learn how to become a great college student, and that the work things will work themselves out over this next semester, and we'll have time with them. They'll have more time to actually engage with us. So, any last final words of advice for our first year parents and families?
I would just say, parents, whether you realize it or not, you are one of the most important voices that your student hears. These first years are Gen Alpha, and one of the hallmarks of their experience is how much they want a consultative relationship, a close one with their parents. So whether you realize it or not, though, your student wants your approval and your compassion and your empathy as they are working through and moving through this new thing called Wake Forest. So I would say that's something I'd want parents to know as their students come home.
That's great. And I would say to the extent that I think Rory said this is that you don't have to know, a student doesn't have to know exactly where they're going before they come to meet with someone in the OPCD. And actually, they don't have to figure out what their major is too. In fact, they can come just have a conversation, understand the process, and sort of get a feel for what is this thing that is going to become their job search process or job and graduate school like exploration process. We can help them, and we can help them actually get more clear about it and build their confidence along the way, as opposed to feeling like so many students say, until I figure out what I want, then I'll go talk to them. But sometimes they may never actually figure that out, so they'll never actually talk to us at all. And then they just take whatever they can because they just need to have a job. And we would really love to avoid that. So anything you can do to help them say, hey, you don't need to know. And there's so many easy ways. You drop in the afternoon, you try to find a way to take one of those courses. Actually, if you or any of us are out and about, and whether it's at one of the fraternity or sorority events, or whether it be at one of the clubs or in the dorms, and we give a little talk, or we're at a table, it's like, hey, go talk to them and find out what they do. Like, we're here to help you, and we just want to get to know them. So hopefully the students will come to realize like that it's a little bit all the way along will make it a lot easier. So anything you can do to help them with that, and help them know that it's okay if they change their mind. Again, a great time to come talk to us, because then we can actually help them think, okay, let's see what else there might be. And even if the thing that you thought was the thing isn't the thing, that's okay too.
I love
Um,
that. Oh, excuse me, Andy.
yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say they don't have to do it by themselves. Everything that you just said, I was thinking at Wake Forest, they do not have to do that by themselves. We're here for
Yeah.
them.
There you go. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope that this was helpful. I hope you know we're here for your students and that they are going to be all good when this all plays out. No matter what the state of the market is, no matter what is going on with AI, we will help them be prepared and ready to get to the marketplace. And yeah, and hopefully let's live in flourishing lives. That's what we're most looking forward for them. All right. Take care, everyone, and go Deeks.